July 14th, 2019. When did I realize Joe Schreibvogel went by 21 aliases? This was an email to Rob Moore at Wondery. It would be lovely for there to be an aha moment, but for me it was more gradual than that. As I came across more and more news stories about Cubs at the mall, I remember finding one by one name and then discovering it ran by another name in a different article. It wasn't so unusual, though, as the bad guys frequently changed their names to hide their poor inspection reports or distance themselves from negative reviews. Joe just had more of these names than most over time. This constant changing of identities across the players was a big part of why I started the 911animalabuse.com site. It gave me a place to update their bio with all of the names that I found for them. Each of the pages, dedicated to one big cat abuser or another, would become a hodge-podge of stories from online, complaints from whistleblowers, inspection reports, and what I could piece together. Some, like Antle and Joe, became these behemoths of information, but they weren't organized very well. Over time, a pattern emerged that showed Joe to be the same person under a lot of different names at malls and fairs. I do remember something of an aha moment when I thought, sheesh, how many names does this clown go by? I vaguely remember being in my office at the sanctuary. Nikita Lioness was in a cage right outside my window, and I could hear her roaring, usually in the mornings or evening. One of the lions would call, and then another would answer, and that would go on for a while. I love the sound, but it always makes me sad because they're captives, making the most of a bad situation. We had a ginger-striped tabby named Tigger who lived in staff offices where my office was, and he could usually be found lounging on the desk of my office, purring softly because it was warm in there. I'm really cold-natured. There was always a dusting of cat hair on everything. Tigger was a stray that had been around the sanctuary since he was a kitten in the 90s. He had the feline version of AIDS and couldn't live in a house with other cats or be allowed to roam the grounds. He's been gone a while now. On the walls were paintings, sketches, and reprints of cats in the wild that donors had given to the sanctuary over the years. I believe that what you think about, you bring about, so I try to make sure the images I see every day are cats living wild and free, the way they should be. I can't help but see them in cages every time I step outside, and I don't want that vision to be their future. I've always had a huge screen iMac on my desk, because I edit photos and videos for the sanctuary and need both the power and the screen resolution to see the detail. That probably helped me see that the people in the news stories were the same band of dirty-looking, stringy-haired, tattooed people who seemed to always show up in black leather and chains, like escapees from a circus freak show. That could describe most of the people in the industry, but Joe wore a huge silver wallet chain that caught my attention, because it had been something of a relic in my memory from flea markets where they were commonly sold. I'd helped my father sell furniture at flea markets in the 80s. The chains made me start to look at the cages and transports to discover that they were the same, just wrapped in different tarp-like banners with different names. I do remember telling Howie that this guy, turned out to be Joe, must have a dozen different names. My guess is that someone had asked us about him specifically, so Howie took the time to consolidate the pages and pages of info on Joe's page. When he was done, there were 21 aliases. We put them at the top of the newly reorganized page so that the search engines would find them too. Whenever people searched for any of those names, the 911animalabuse.com pages almost never get that sort of thoughtful workup, especially taking Howie's valuable time into an organized presentation unless there is some pressing factor to make it easy for someone to access what they are looking for. It's usually a member of the press wanting to do some fluff piece on cub petting, and we will organize the info on their subject to show them that they really shouldn't be promoting cub abuse. Sorry that I can't make it any more cinematic for you listeners than that. Howie might remember why he went to all the bother of reorganizing the page, so he's copied here. Howie probably had more of that aha moment than I did, because he saw it all at once, whereas I had been gathering info for years by that time. And then this was the email Rob sent me that I was replying to. Rob wrote. Okay, one last question. As you've probably noticed, Wondery likes to tell things in a very cinematic way. And they want me to set the scene for when you first discovered that all these various people at the road shows were all Joe Schreibvogel. It really is a crucial moment. I know you said you don't remember the exact moment of the realization, but can you give me a few details that you can deduce from your habits back then? For example, what room would you have been in at the time? In the office at Big Cat Rescue? In a room in your house? Were you at a laptop or a desktop? What time of night would it have been? Were there any cats in the room, etc.? Thanks so much, Rob. If you're enjoying my diary, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find other ways to connect to me over at bigcatrescue.org/Carole.Baskin.